What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the podcast. We've got an amazing guest for you guys. We've got Rob Gearing, and you may not recognize Rob, but you'll recognize Spartan Precision. So he's the one that started Spartan Precision, which, as you guys well know, I'm getting back into my passion for firearms and of course the long range shooting is kind of where it's at. I joke with my buddies that they should get out of golf and they should get into long range shooting because that's the real man's golf. But in all reality, long range shooting is a lot of fun. Hunting's a lot of fun. Bipods are important. Tripods are important. And Rob has a very interesting and distinct way of going about that with Spartan Precision. It's not the typical mounting system. It's not the typical setup. We're going to go through a lot of what Spartan Precision is, why Rob decided to go down that route. And of course, you'll notice he does have an accent. So he is not from the US, but he has a very heavily US focused market. And so he definitely comes here more than he should probably just move here at this point. But
get me a green card, RedBeard. I'll be here tomorrow. They won't let me in.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, with that being said, Rob, for people that don't know who you are you, man?
So thank you very much, RedBeard, for inviting me on your fine podcast. Right. Rob Gearing, background is climbing mountains, really, rock climbing more than hunting. Hunting's very difficult to get into in the UK because we got a tiny little landmass, no public land, and a shitload of people. And then we get a shitload of negative people because they can't get into hunting. So it's a vicious circle, really. So what you guys have got over here is I thoroughly endorse, support, and well done for keeping your public land public the other day, by the way. That was really good. So my DNA, climbing mountains, rock climbing, aircraft engines for a very long time. So I look at things from an aeronautical perspective, i.e. lightweight. I also look at things from a climbing perspective, lightweight, strong, durable, don't want it to fail because guess what? If it fails, it might freaking kill me. So stuff has to work. Used to take a lot of people out hunting in the UK, and I didn't like bipods, right? That's not to say bipods don't have a purpose. They're a great tool, and there's some fantastically good bipods out there now, not just Spartan. Everybody's making some great stuff. So basically, I took people out hunting. I didn't have a bipod on my rifle because I got fed up with having one stuck in my shoulder, weighing quite a lot, just getting in the way, because I'd use it probably 1 in every 8 times. Got a Swedish client into a roe deer, this little Labrador-sized deer that we have in the UK. They're beautiful little animals. And basically didn't have a bipod. He didn't feel comfortable about making the shot. I'm the last person on the planet to make somebody make a shot they're not comfortable with. It's not going to ruin my day. So I failed him. And I'm going to really compress this because we'll be talking for 3 bloody hours if I don't. We purchased the nose of Concorde, one of the Concords, the test nose at Farnborough, and turned it into a piece of art. Right, Concorde was a supersonic plane. A lot of your younger people might not even be aware of them, but they were freaking fast and ahead of their day. We bought the nose of Concorde to turn it into a piece of art. We mounted this thing on an Olympus engine bearing, the Olympus being the engine that powered Concorde. And my engineering buddy covered the ugly bearing with 2 clamshells using 2 rare earth magnets. And I went, wow, these things are freaking on the money. Make me a bipod that goes on my rifle with a magnet so I can keep it in my bipod holder, pocket, or on my bino caddy and stick it on when I freaking need it, and it's not there the other 99.9% time getting in the way when I don't. And he did, and it worked. And I slowly built a little business, and we're still not a big company, although it feels like the bacteria is spreading in a good way now. And we can cover that off in a little while. But basically, my DNA, I love mountain hunting. So really the whole Spartan approach was very much for the mountain hunter. I mean, the guy that's going to go out for 10 days on his own, the guy or girl that's worried about weight, cuts everything down to a minimum and just wants to achieve the goal. And I like my things to die well, right? And I've screwed up enough shots to know it doesn't work well all the time, but I want to limit that rate of mistakes, those opportunities where I can get it wrong. And sticking your rifle on a pack, yeah, it's got its place, But when you're not locked in, it means your soft body tissue is moving forwards and backwards. And I'm sorry, it's just not acceptable in today's environment if you can do something else, in my humble opinion. And I say that I'm not trying to sell the virtues of Spartan. I'm trying to sell the virtues of 2 legs, or better still, 3 legs if you can do it. Support is everything. 30 years ago, people hunted with rifles with no scopes, with nothing, just very basic utilitarian tools. We wouldn't even consider it now if you're a serious hunter. Things have moved on, and a dear old friend of mine, a Scottish guy, Jim Creedon, who got me into deer hunting in the UK, who I love dearly, sadly no longer with us, but I learnt a lot from him. I remember saying one thing to him once, because I grew up in an environment where shooting beyond 100 yards was considered unethical, right? But that was with a Stutson, shitty calibers, just didn't work. And then I made the silly mistake once of saying to him, hey, Jim, we're getting pretty good at this. We're shooting out to 300 yards now and blah, blah, blah. He said, no, we're not gearing. He said, the gear's getting better. Never forgotten that, and he was absolutely right. And he was one of my biggest supporters, biggest fans when I came out with this Javelin bipod. He completely got it. Our challenge, I think, what you asked me, what's different about Spartan is we are a support system company. I don't consider us making bipods, tripods, or quads. I consider us making a system approach. And up until really the beginning of this year, we were very much mountain focused. Well, we got more drugs now to offer for different sicknesses. And now I can confidently say, whatever your illness is, I've probably got the drugs to fix you. So whether you're plains game, whether you're hunting in woodland, whether you're going to Africa, whether you're hunting in the Arctic, we've got answers. They'll all do the job, but some, if you understand your environment, will do it much better than others. And our challenge, being a little company, is better explaining to the end users, to the listeners, what we actually do and how best it works. And we're getting there. Just had 2 days with Outdoor Sportsman's Group in Cameo. Freaking loved it. I mean, got world-class journalists there like Craig Boddington, Joseph Von Benedict, Skip Knowles, David. They all get it, and it smiles on their faces. And if I can keep people like that happy, right, because they're no-nonsense people, they're going to tell me if they're not happy. If I can keep that end happy, then it's going to filter down, and I think the bacteria will spread well. So I love the opportunity to speak about the stuff, thanks RedBeard for inviting me on, just to help spread the word. But we're not perfect. We don't get it all right. We make some hideous cock-ups, errors on the way. But equally, we're not arrogant and cocky. We're small, we're mobile, we listen. And now we've got Spartan Precision equipment for the hunting, sport shooting side. Moreover, because it's all kicking off in Europe, we've got Spartan Operations now. A lot of your listeners will never have heard of that. And that's a whole defense product line, completely and utterly different from the hunting side. Different tools. One's hunting people, one's hunting animals. One weight is not so sensitive, the other one is. There is some cross-migration between that, and I can see that happening very well in the NRL world. And I work with great people. I work with SAS guys, I work with Delta Force guys, I work with Chad Pierce. I'd be a fool not to listen. So effectively, I've become a glue pot for very bright people. And if I don't listen, then that's my fault, and I'm not going to make great gear. But I believe we make really, really good, clever answers, innovative, simple answers to enable people to do their job properly, better, be it hunting or shooting, in the army or in the hunting world. And soon, as I say, the competitive shooting stuff. But we've got like 6 bipods that probably people don't even know. We're even making a bipod for the M60 machine gun. Nobody knows about it, but we've had those little units come to us because they like what we're doing on the other side of the spectrum, and weight in the military is everything. The days of one guy being tied up to carry a tripod round for a machine gun are over, frankly. We can do better. So we do. That was a very long, lots of rabbit holes, RedBeard, but I think that answered your question, hopefully.
Yeah, no, you're good. I do agree. You are in a lot of different spaces, and there's a lot of things I'm not going to pretend to know either. I mean, I grew up in a military town. Most of my family is military, and so I understand a little bit of it. I understand the culture. I even have people ask me all the time if I'm ex-military just from my mannerisms, because I grew up around people like that. My scoutmasters were all SF guys, so it just was kind of ingrained in me growing up. But I'm not going to pretend to know everything when it comes to the military. So I would like to focus a little bit on just a couple things here with, NRL matches are things that I'm looking to get into in the next year or so. I'd love to, if I have the time. The calendar's the problem. If I could
Yeah.
quit my 9-to-5 job and be a stay-at-home dad and do all these things, I would absolutely do it. But you got to take care of the family. So with NRL, let's go into hunting specifically, because most of my audience is going to be hunters, and they're going to get out there. Most of them, again, are archers as well. But let's talk about rifle specific. What makes your bipods and even tripods, because some people will carry a tripod out on a rifle hunt, depending on if you're going, in a razor side by side kind of deal, or if you're hiking in, you want to cut some weight. Talk to us about your bipod, tripod attachments, and what makes it stand out compared to other hunting bipods out there.
I think I can answer that question. So let's talk about the bipod first. So the Javelin has one moving leg. Ridiculously simple. It folds away to nothing. I'm just going to say, RedBeard, we stick to support systems. We don't even make the bags for the gear, because I know what we're good at. Moreover, I know what we're not good at. So we use companies like FHF, for example, make a brilliant caddy for the bipod, which stays under your bipod, under your binocular holster, caddy, sorry. So it's very lightweight, right? It's carbon fiber, it's aero grade alloys. The leg, all of the Spartan system is modular, meaning I can take the legs off the bipod and put them onto the tripod if I wish. So I can build also, it's Lego, Meccano, whatever you want to call it, for the shooter. So it's very lightweight. It's absolutely aimed at the hunting market. And why I say that is it has a lot of cant and a lot of rotation. So when you fit that bipod, by the way, I can fit that bipod onto the rifle quicker than you can drop 2 legs on a conventional bipod. So it's very fast. I also only need one bipod, because if I have all my systems set up with a Spartan Ready adapter, I just have that bipod with me in the caddy. So whatever rifle I'm taking with me, the bipod is there. So I don't have 1,500 bipods, I'm exaggerating, but lots of bipods in my gun cabinet getting in the way. Once you've got that adapter fitted to the rifle, the little magnet switch system, and there's a host of different options. We do M-LOK. We even do Q now, we do Picatinny, we do Classic, we do a guide adapter. So if you're traveling to Africa, you can fit the guide adapter straight over the sling swivel stud. So there's no excuses not to be able to fit the system. Once I've got that little magnet switch system on the rifle, it migrates from the bipod to a tripod, of which we make 4 different tripods, right? And they've all got their pros and cons. But the main one that we're probably best known for is the Ascent tripod, the Mountain Ascent, which is an expensive tool. But when you look at what it does and how it's made, I don't think it's that expensive. We don't make lots of money. We put our money into the product rather than the marketing and sales. That's why I speak to people like you, to make people aware about what we do. But our tripod's different in the fact that all of those legs unscrew and become your trekking poles. So from a climbing perspective, why am I going to carry a tripod when I've got 3 perfectly good legs on there? Why can't I use them for my trekking poles? And these trekking poles are built really, really well. So they're all field strippable. There's no silly little bits to come out, fall out, drop on the ground. You can wash them in a stream. There's nothing to rust or corrode. If people read the reviews, don't take my word for it, because I could be crapping on everybody, but I'm not. They literally get a grand review. The product really does what it's meant to do. First and foremost, tripods, as with our bipod, tripods particularly, aren't camera tripods. They're designed for shooting off. Now, you can use your optics on them. We've got little lightweight adapters. Is it going to replace a big heavy-duty fluid head? No, it's not. That's not our DNA. Our DNA is lightweight hunting. Will it support a big spotting scope? Yes, it absolutely will. Will it do the job? Yes, it absolutely will. So anybody that does a lot of hunting, particularly in difficult environments, is going to understand the challenges and the compromises you have to make to get from A to B. And you have to make big sacrifices. So that's why we do it. Spartan really is about reducing the sacrifices, keeping the weight to a minimum, and providing you functional support when you really need it. And I don't want to come away from that. I think that's really the birthplace of Spartan. What we've done now is come down the mountainside. There's more horses in the stable. Now, if you're a woodland hunter, if you're a plains game hunter, if you're an African hunter, if you're hunting up in the Arctic, we've also got answers. All of those products will do what they're meant to do, what they say they're going to do on the tin. And one of the products I'm most proud of, and it's one of our cheapest, is the Springbok BIPOD. Now, I can't take any credit for this, RedBeard, because it's a friend of mine in the Arctic up in Scandinavia that has a contract for removing red foxes where they encroach on silver foxes. So he does it for the government. And he is very particular. He's very well respected where he comes from. He's an awesome guy, as you Americans would say. So really fantastic person, but really knows what he wants, right? He wrote the Swedish hunting manual. So that's the caliber of person we're talking about. Yeah. And it's like the Bible. He said to me 6 years ago, he said, Gearing, I need a system that's really fast without buttons, right? That I can just move and migrate to quick effect, to fast effect. And he had the idea, and I made all sorts of contraptions and they were crap. You know, they didn't work. And then we had a week out up in the Arctic in the winter on skis, hunting capercaillie. It's like a turkey-sized grouse, right? And these guys live way up north. They live off pine needles. And when it gets really cold, they bury themselves in little snow holes. And it got really cold. It got so cold, the snow gets dusty from the climate, you know, dangerously cold with snow machine problems. We had all sorts of things crap out on us. I also had a hernia that was popping out my front, and on ski it wasn't good because you'd fall over on these skis and you'd be like in a bowl of soup trying to, and I thought, shit, this is getting hard, or I'm getting old. Hopefully I've still got a few years left in me. Anyway, what happened was basically it got so freaking cold, it got down to minus 35 centigrade. So it's probably about you or 40, you know, pretty freaking cold. So we spent a few days together in his hut up there working on this Springbok BIPOD concept. And we made lots of different compounds. And basically, just to explain to your listeners, it's a silicon-bodied bipod. So it's very flexible, like a pair of rubber pants with two legs on. And you can do everything from prone to kneeling with this, just by bending the legs. We couldn't use rubber because rubber splits. It gets cold and splits, or gets too hot and too soft. So we went for silicon. And we have a wire inside. It's very robust, it's very capable, and it's very simple, and it's not expensive. And we are selling the hell out of those little guys because you just read the reviews on it. David Fabian said to me, he said, the one thing I will not go hunting without now is that Springbok BIPOD, because it's just such a capable tool. Is it a precision tool? No, it absolutely isn't. Is it a tool that will give you enough stability to make that critical shot? Yes, it absolutely is. We were in New Zealand last year and we shot 100 goats in 2 days off that system.
Wow.
They didn't all go to Valhalla straight away, but they went to Valhalla, right? But it's quick and effective. For game management, which is something we do a lot of in the UK, or for predator control, it's a must. And on the back of that, we launched a whole Springbok range. So the Springbok BIPOD, the chopsticks of death, we nickname it, had a bigger brother called a Springbok tripod, silicon-bodied tripod. It is just so stupidly simple. Why wouldn't you use it? There's no buttons to press. There's nothing. You can just pull one arm out and you've got a really solid, stable platform because you've now got 3 legs on the ground as opposed to 2. So that gives you even more stability and you can do standing shots. It's going to be very popular in Europe. It's already proven that way. And it will be, I think, for the east of America or anywhere there's no mountains, any subalpine environment, I think that's going to work very, very well. On from that, we made a Springbok quad. So it's like 2 bipods joined together. So you've now got 2 points of contact on the ground, not 3. But you've also got 2 points of contact on the rifle platform. meaning it's very, very stable. You can push the rear bipod back to the front and treat it like a giant bipod. Fantastic tool. Again, I can't take any credit. All I'm just doing is gluing great ideas together. So that whole Springbok range provides you a load of different options depending on what your environment and application is. So very much not mountain driven now. That's very much subalpine tools for anybody else out there. Shills have just taken them on, so we're super excited about that because that's a fantastic store. You know, I get properly jizzed up if I go into Shills. It's got good staff, good people, and they've got great products. So we really wanted to be part of that. And so a few of those stores are taking it on. I think more and more will take it on because they seem to be selling them very well. And a lot of good little gun shops, independents around the US are selling them. I'm currently at Branded Rock Canyon, which is an awesome place run by my friend Amy. She was the first person to start selling Spartan in 2017, I believe, just around the corner from you in Colorado. And yeah, there's more and more people are taking on Spartan, and we're really excited about that. Moreover, we now, although we're a British company, don't come to the UK, people. We're 20 years ahead of the game in the wrong way from where you are. We're fulfilling in the US now. So anything you order, and you can order it off the website as well. But do reach out to us if there's questions you've got. We're happily engaged. We're not, you know, we're there to listen and help educate, and we recognise that's our weakness, is better explaining how the products work and what's the best application for what product. But basically, ecosystem of shooting support is the answer. It's not bipods, it's an ecosystem that you can add to or take away depending on what your shooting application is. From the hunting perspective, we could talk about NRL, we could talk about military, I'd have different answers. But from the hunting perspective, it's providing you a stable platform to make that critical shot.
That's awesome. That's really cool. I don't think that's anything I've seen with bipods anyway. The bending, you know, silicone style.
We got a lot of IP. We've spent a fair bit of money on patents and IP because we believe in what we're doing. And the Magna Switch system is so stupidly simple. Why wouldn't you do it? It's not for everybody. You know, if people want a big heavyweight bipod, I'm not going to argue with them. And as you said, there's some brilliant products out there. It's just we go at it from a different angle. I do not want to carry a single pound of weight that I don't need to carry. And with Spartan, we cut it right down to the minimum without sacrificing strength and reliability. The only problem we get about Spartan bipods, the only complaint, is people lose them. And it's a valid point. You know, they'll put them down somewhere and lose them. But other than that, if you read the reviews, people love the product. It does the job. I've had people shoot, you know, I'm not going to get into the ethos of whether it's right or not, but shooting out to 1,200 yards and taking a shot for little javelin bipod. I did a competition, Nia Group, our Australian distributors, did a podcast with me a few weeks ago. And before you do the podcast, they make you do a shooting competition, no pressure, on a Springfield rifle, LEUPOLD optics, and a bag. And I was up against a New Zealand Saskai, Australian Saskai. There's an NRL competitive shoot. And I said, well, I can't use a bag, lads. But I make support suit. I've got to use a bipod. And bear in mind, this is a hunting bipod. So I took the simplest little javelin bipod out there. Bags, obviously, all your listeners are going to consider the best, most stable platform there is. Well, I put my simple little javelin bipod on and I won by a long way, you know, and I'm not a brilliant shot. And I thought, well, that's a good endorsement for me. If somebody says the javelin bipod is not a target shooting bipod, no, I absolutely agree with you. But can it do the job? Yes, it absolutely can. And I stand by my words, and I beat some of the best lads on the planet, right? So, and I'm not good at what I'm doing. So I've said, I took that as a big endorsement.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. That's really cool to hear that you had that success with, you know, with your bipod after they were ragging on you for not having bags. I do want to ask a couple things here. So we've got the Javelin, and then you've got the Javelin Pro. So kind of, I guess, let's start with, for those that are into rifle hunting, or even maybe they're not quite into the NRL or even maybe the NRL, but mainly hunting purposes, where would you start someone at? Because so you got the Javelin Light and then you've got the Javelin Pro.
So that's a really good question. So you've actually got a few bipods coming out now. You've got the Javelin Light, which is our simplest bipod, right? So it just has a single fixed leg. You can't extend that leg. You can't drop it. It's just two legs to give you support. You might have to put it on a pack. You might have to do something to get a bit of height, but it's going to do the job. And it works great, and it weighs nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the good thing about the Javelin Light is you can upgrade it any stage. Because all of our systems are modular, you can, if you get fed up with a fixed part leg, at a later stage, you can add another leg onto it. So an adjustable leg. So you can enhance that product as and when you want to. It's very simple, but it's cost effective. It's our gateway, really, into getting to the Spartan family. The Javelin Pro, you've got the Javelin Pro and Pro Hunt Tack. Now, the Pro Hunt Tack uses a much more comprehensive leg. You've got little buttons on it. You press and you can drop the leg. So it's going to give you a lot more adjustability. The other thing that the tack's got, the Pro Hunt Tack, has got a locking body. So when those legs come out, they're locked in place until you release them with a thumb button at the back. So both have got their place. I use both of them. A lot of people use, the light one. If you were really cutting your toothbrush in half kind of person and you just wanted support, but no way, go for the Javelin Light. It's going to do the job. It's going to fix the situation. But if you like a bit more finesse and more capability, the Javelin Pro Hunt Tack's definitely the way to go. There's also the Javelin TL, which sits between those two. Might not be on our website yet, but it will be very soon. And that's got a twist lock. I really like that product because it's got a bit more versatility than the Javelin Light. It's not much heavier. And it's just a good midway between the three. And what I should say is we're much more grown up in Europe, RedBeard. Most of the rifle manufacturers in Europe are now offering rifles that are Spartan ready. And what do I mean by that? It means that rifle, you can buy it with an adapter built in. So you don't even have to worry about getting the adapter or fitting it. It's already in the stock. And a lot of European brands are doing that. More and more American brands are coming to the table on that front. So Weatherby make a fantastic mountain rifle with two gunsmith adapters fitted in. Fantastic piece of kit, that. J.E. Wiles in New Zealand's using that now, and you'll see he's pretty popular around the planet. So it's a Spartan-ready rifle. Taurus make a really good, cost-effective hunting rifle with a gunsmith adapter fitted. And you're going to see more and more. Savage's top-end rifle has the gunsmith adapter in. So we're getting there. But as I say, we're not state-size based, so it just takes longer for that to happen. But I think in the future what we'll do is we'll offer bipods without the adapters, because if you've already got the adapters, why spend extra money on another one you don't need? So we'll keep the product as cost effective as we can by taking those adapters out the boxes and giving people the options. And plus, a lot of people run them on ARs. They might want M-lock adapters, and there's a lot of chassis rifles out there now. So you've got to pick the right adapter. But that's the Javelin family.
Gotcha.
And they're definitely really hunting tools as opposed to range tools.
So the Javelin Pro will get you you have various lengths, right? Yeah, you've got a 9 to 12 and a 7 to 9.
Yeah. So basically, 9 to 12, 7 to 9. So there's the standard and there's the long. Mm-hmm. Probably the long has got more capabilities, because most hunting environments, the ground ain't flat out there, and you might need that extra little height. But also, I would throw into that, the Springbok bipod, you can do everything prone to kneeling with that product, right? The silicon body. You probably don't need everything. Well, I'm here. You buy what you want. But honestly, if you had to pick one tool, that Springbok bipod is absolutely where it needs to be. It's not going to give you the same stability that the Javelin range will do, but it will give you enough stability and get you over the sagebrush. Moreover, if you're into turkey hunting, watch this space, because that Springbok is a formidable little turkey hunting support tool as well, because you could just mount your shotgun up, lift it up, take your shot, bang, and you're away. So you could have a piece of kit there that's going to be very good for your deer season and also your turkey season, and will migrate between your rifle and your shotgun without having to spend any more dollar. So this is why I'm saying the modularity of the Spartan system and the adaptability is really what it's about. Your buyers might look at it and go initially, oh, that's quite a price. Well, actually, when you weigh up what it does, I don't think it is. I think our prices are pretty competitive. And also the materials we're using, you know, the quality of the products, they're absolutely beautifully put together.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I'm just looking over right now the Springbuck. So it's essentially it's carbon rods. Switching over to that, the Springbuck BIPOD, it's carbon rods that have a silicon body, and it's kind of like it's shaped like this, and the rods attach here for people that are watching this, and then this part is the part that moves, but the rods themselves are carbon rods. They're not silicon.
Yeah, so the rods are rigid, right? They're extendable carbon rods. You could take those rods off and put them on a javelin bipod, and vice versa. The silicon body is the magic piece of the cake because it's a flexible hunting tool. So you imagine there's a lot of bipods out there that will give you height, and you know you can do all these wonderful things, but it takes a bit of time to twist or press a button and blah blah blah. You can do all of that with a Springbuck because you just bend the legs to where you need them to go. I mean, you just look at the videos, it's just doesn't matter what the ground's doing, whether you're prone, kneeling, or seated, you can find a solid support system to make that stable shot. It could not be more simple. I mean, it's stupid simple.
So I'm looking here, specification. It'll go from 19 inches to 38 and a half. So 19 and a half to 38 and a half.
Yeah, that's in height, RedBeard. But what you remember is that silicon body means you can bend them out. So you could shoot from 6 inches off the ground if you wanted to.
Right. Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm just thinking of the carbon rod length.
Yeah.
So will the carbon rod length, will that expand even more, or is it just one fixed?
No,
carbon
it's
rod?
two pieces of carbon that sit
Okay.
in. It's like the bipod, so it'll extend from, I think, 19 inches up. Basically, if you say in your mind, I've got to make a prone shot or a seated shot, you can do it with that product just by simply untwisting the legs and giving yourself a bit more height. Yeah.
And I'll say this year on my first bear hunt, I had a different bipod that I was using, and I had to extend it all the way, which I think if extended all the way, if I remember off the top of my head, it would get to 30 inches.
Yeah.
And it was such a steep downhill shot. And then I had a bunch of grass and brush in front of me that I was trying to get over that grass and brush, but I had nothing to support. So it was I almost had to take a freehand shot at 200 yards on this bear because I almost couldn't get over the brush. I had to fully extend it. So those are situations that, you know, obviously I didn't plan for. I was thinking I'd have the bipod and maybe need to use it. But yeah, in that situation, you know, that length definitely came in handy. And then 19 inches really, that's not, I mean, if you're fully collapsed, that's not that far. And like you said, your system can pop off if you don't want to carry the bipod on the gun.
You're not going to keep it on the rifle. You're going to keep it in your pack and pull it out when you need it. And it's light, it's simple. You just keep it there, pull it out. But that scenario you've just explained there, I'm really glad you touched on that, because I've done enough of this to recognize a downward shot on a mountain is probably one of the most challenging shots to make, because finding a stable platform when you're pointing downhill, because there's always stuff in the way and the rifle just wants to leave your shoulder because its weight is really challenging. So you can do that on the Springbuck very effectively because you can bend the legs forward as well as down to give you something to purchase against. But we made a military tripod called the Hercules. I just come off story for a little while here, but I'll explain why, because it'll make sense. So we were approached by a sniper unit, mainly European sniper unit, and they said, we need a tripod for 50 cal to last 5,000 shots. And I said, well, we don't have one. And pretty much everything out there is modified camera tripods, and these guys have destroyed everything. And I said, but I can build you one. So I had a clean slate to play with, which was great. So rather than a conventional tripod, I built the control module into the body of the tripod, meaning keeping all the real estate low. I made these very lightweight but very strong legs and a pretty robust body. It weighs a few pounds. It's not the lightest thing, but it's still light compared to a lot of other tripods in that category. And then we went back for test. We won the contract. And they did their 5,000 shots and they continued on that tripod. And they're now up to 17,000 last time I spoke to that unit. And that tripod is still going strong. So we smashed it out the park. And I loved the tripod, but I didn't like the weight of it. So what I did was I thought, I need that product, but I need it in hunting format. So I developed the Hoplite, which is a mini little tiny tripod. It's short, goes to about 18 inches. But great for sort of working in the mountains. But you can obviously unscrew the legs and put our trekking pole legs on it and build a full-size tripod if you wish. You could also put the Springbox super light legs on, which I know a few guys doing, to make it pretty much the lightest tripod out there, fully functional. So it's Lego. But I made the Hoplite as a miniature version of the military tripod. It's exactly the same, right? Other than we use the Magna switch as opposed to the disc lock system for the hunting. So what that tripod does, that would work in this scenario you've just told me about, because unlike other tripods, there's no central column in the middle of this tripod, meaning I can shoot really flat with it. But also it gives me, and I'm going to try and explain this to your listeners. You imagine you've got 3 legs. You can push one leg through the other 2 legs, fold that leg forward. And it means you can have a very effective, stable downhill system because you're pushing that leg through, which throws the tripod over to a really high angle and gives you that downhill opportunity. So if you're going to New Zealand, for example, and hunting, or the Alps and hunting chamois or tahr, that tool is formidable. And I was in New Zealand at the beginning of this year, and I shot my stag exactly like you did. It was a 200-meter shot. It was downhill, very steep. I couldn't have made that shot, RedBeard, without that product. And I couldn't have done it off a conventional bipod either.
Right.
Just would not have been able to get the height. But because I could throw that Hoplite leg forward, throw the angle over, I was really, really stable. And awesome. We had a dead deer. So again, and I didn't discover that about that system. It was a listener that said, do you realise what you can do with this tripod? And I thought, no, I've never tried. So you get a lot of good feedback from users out there, and I love that. I love the engagement with people actually using the products.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's really cool. I actually really like to hear, obviously other people's experiences on that as well. And it's one thing to sit on a bench and use a bipod on a bench or on flat ground. It's easy to do that. But when you get it out in the field and you're able to test it in those weird situations, that's where you definitely figure out if your gear's made for what, especially even the things that you don't even plan on doing, like those steep downhill shots with brush in front of you and no other support system. You don't have trees that you can set up on a tree branch or anything like that. All of those things it's cool to hear other people's experiences because, again, you don't know until you're in that situation what's going on. So that's cool.
I'm so glad you touch on that. I did a ladies' hunt camp many years ago, and basically they were all shooting off benches, like most hunting training camps. And I said, well, girls, it ain't going to be like that. You're not going to have a table. It's not going to be flat. Your neck's going to be doing 180, right? Your shoulders are already crumped up. You probably need a crap. You probably, all happening. Just everything's going to be thrown at you at the same time, and you're not going to be comfortable. So let's shoot uncomfortable. Let's make you as uncomfortable as we can and see how effective you can be. And with these tools, I can help you. And that's where branded rock canyon comes into its own. Namely, because we're in a valley here, so we're doing angles. So we do a Spartan hunting course here every year. There's one in November, and if you're interested in coming, just reach out to Amy. I think there's a couple of spare places going. But I'd encourage anybody to come and try this place. It's fantastic. We don't need, other than zeroing the rifles, you won't do any flat work. You're going to be doing really extreme angles, pointing down, pointing up, cross shots, bloody tackling winds. And that's how you learn. Make your mistakes doing it like that, rather than making your mistakes on the animals. And it'll just give you such confidence. I'm not saying you can still screw it up. If you shoot enough animals, it's going to happen. And we have to come to terms with that. But honestly, shooting at angles and learning to shoot at angles and doing those things in that way really, really helps to increase your skill set. And they're perishable skills. So keep the practice up, keep doing these things. And I encourage people before hunting season's around the corner, get out there and say, make yourself uncomfortable, get up against a rock, make it as awkward as it can, and then make those shots. I think other than checking the gear, shooting flat doesn't do anything for me, right? Yes, check your gears right, check your angle trap, but then get out there and make yourself some obstacles. And that's where I think the NRL shooter competition really comes into its own, because that's exactly what it's doing. So that's going to make some good hunters for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And there's a couple things about that have interested me with the NRL, and we'll get into that here in a little bit. But I agree. Once you've got your setup dialed in, essentially taking away all the variables possible, which would be, so you can sit on a bench, you might have a bipod, bags, or even shooting a gun rest, to keep it super solid. Once you've got it dialed in, I definitely recommend you go out and test it in the field if you can. Luckily, and this is a big reason why I stayed in Utah and didn't go back home to North Carolina, 11, 12 years ago, was because I fell in love with the public land. I can drive, 45 minutes or less and have a range. As long as I've got the targets, I can shoot out to a mile or more. There's just all this stuff that I can do out there. That is fantastic. And so I agree, getting out and testing it at different angles, testing it with different wind, different heat, the mirage that comes off the ground when it's hot outside, things like that. Definitely get out there and test it, because that's where you're going to know if your stuff will shine or not in the moment of truth. And then with NRL, and that's what interested me, because I know there's another big rifle competition, but they have like 20-pound, 30-pound rifles that they're lugging around, because they're trying to get as super precisely accurate as possible, which obviously having a weighted rifle and all the attachments and all the accessories and everything helps with. That's not interesting to me, because I'll be honest, I look at not all of them, but a lot of the competitors are not in shape. They don't look like they've hunted a day in their life, and they're just there to shoot a gun really well, which they are very good at. But that's not my crowd. That's not the people that I want to be like. And then you look at NRL, and they look like hunters. They look like people that get out and actually do stuff outdoors. And then you look at the courses, and like you're saying, they're a lot more steep downhill, uphill. They get your heart rate up. It's a lot more definitely hunter related scenarios. And those are the things that definitely interest me, because once you're dialed in at flat ground, going out and testing it at angles, you're going to find those little small things that you need to tweak here or there, whether that's your gear, whether that's your optics, whether that's your rest, your cheek rest. Everything is where you're going to find that out when you're shooting out at 1,000 yards downhill or uphill.
Absolutely agree with that. I just think I think getting yourself on some of those NRL competitions, it sounds like a great idea. And I think the Springbok family would work very, very well in that. They're not, as I said, but you're using a lightweight hunting rifle, use lightweight hunting support systems, but it's very fast and fluid and adjustable without pressing a single button. So be interested to see where that goes. I need to I'm going to keep a good interest on that, because I think that could be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And it's good. Agree. It's good practice for what really happens out there.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's always good to test your stuff. It's cool to have cool gear, but if you want it to work well, you've got to use it. Take your pictures of the gear when it looks nice and pretty and clean and not dinged up and you haven't dropped it yet, things like that. Take your pictures when you first get it. That way you can remember how pretty it was at the beginning, and then go out and cover it in dust, and don't worry about dropping it and, things like that, because it needs to last those things. Is it going to do okay with a layer of dust on it? Is it going to do okay when it's been through the brush and you scratched up the paint job and, things like that. The other day I got kind of ticked because I dropped, I have a new scope that I'm mounting on an AR. So it's an LVPO, so limited variable power optic. And I'm putting it on an AR, and I accidentally dropped it onto my concrete floor.
Yeah.
And it got a little bit of a ding, but I looked at it, the glass was fine, not cracked, it was still clear. I'm like, all right, if it
It's going
fell
to
from
happen.
if it fell from head height to the concrete floor and it's okay, I could trust it,
Yeah. I'm brutal with our gear, and I have to be. And I think, I'm an outdoors person before I'm an engineer. So, I'll be in the Arctic to the deserts of Patagonia. I'll be all over the place. So I want the stuff to work. And I'm 61 years old. I look after myself. I do okay for my age. I could be a lot better. For me, it's not about, if I was 20 or 30, I might have a very different ethos on life. But for me, it's about making gear as good as I freaking can, right? That doesn't let people down, that does what it's meant to do in a really difficult environment, be it minus 35 degrees, plus blah, blah, covered in dust, covered in shit, covered in sand. I want it to work. And I test it in those environments. I mean, this year alone, I started in New Zealand, I've been in Africa, a lot of Eastern Europe countries, some defense stuff. We've been smashing those products. So when people like you, our customers, get hold of them, I want to know I've got faith and confidence in it. And you don't see the hideous amount of errors that we make to get where we get, so there's a lot of internal tortures that go on to achieve what we try and achieve. But I think we get there, and I think we do it very well. I'm very proud of the team and what we're able to do. And that means a lot to me. Yes, we're a business. Yes, we need to thrive and make money. But really, about making great product, at my age, that's the driver for me. I want to be able to speak to people like you and say, try that. And I'll take honest criticism. If there's something you say, well, Rob, it didn't really do this, and say, I'm going to listen, and things evolve and things get better. Our products now are really not about what I've come up with. It's about listening to lots of people out there and evolving and fine-tuning and calibrating and getting it right until we've got it right. And then when gear comes out, I can sit there with confidence and say, no, that absolutely does what it's meant to do. And most of the gear now today is really out there like that. And it's just picking the right medicine, and picking the right tools for the jobs. And I would say, if you're doing a lot of range work, go elsewhere. Although we do have range bipods, we have the Valhalla, we have, which has been voted very highly. So I shouldn't run away from that. But because of my hunting mountaineering experience, I'm really driven by that element. And that's why I think we've really hit a nice spot.
Yeah, for sure. And that's another thing that I love about, what you guys have going on is the fact that you use it in the field. You're not just which nothing against people that, sit in the office and create it and maybe even just use it on the range, hopefully. There's nothing against that, but it's another level of security when you know that the owner of a company, the one that's creating the products, is actually out there using it in similar scenarios that you're going to be using it when it comes to, hunting, especially because, again, there's so much you don't want to have any doubt in your mind when you have that animal that you found that you've worked really hard for to, you want to be able to trust your gear. You want to know that it's going to go where you put the crosshairs, right?
It's a huge insurance, RedBeard. I think there's a lot of great engineers out there, but clearly you look at some of the products, you think, well, you've never really used that in the field. And it still saddens me today that you still can pick up stuff like that. It's less and less, but, you just have to see us on Instagram or social media to see that we're out there living, breathing and doing it, and a lot of it in many different environments, and that's how we get better. And I'm much more proud of my outdoors gearing than my engineering gearing. The engineering gearing looks at simple solutions and answers. The outdoor gearing gets a lot of time, a lot of different flavors to experience a lot of different things. So that gearing can become that engineering gearing, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
and
no, for sure.
My answer is If I can make it simple and effective, let's do that. I don't like buttons. I don't like knobs. I don't like twists. Anything like that, yes, we need them. Of course we do. But they're all slowing you down, right? Any button I've got to press, and you'll know this as well as I do, and as well as a lot of other people that have hunted, time is everything, people. Mm-hmm. It's everything. Getting that stable, I might not have the luxury of time. So if I can get into a relatively comfortable position with a stable platform and even save a split second, that's a win for me. That's a huge win, because it could be the difference between a successful hunt and an unsuccessful one. So if I've got to press a button or move a lever or blah, 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 it's all time, right? That Springbok range annihilates that in one fell swoop. You do make a sacrifice. You're not going to have a rock solid platform, but you are going to have a very stable platform. Mm-hmm. And as long as you know how to use the system, and there's plenty of videos on that, you're in a killer mode. And I think that takes a lot of beating.
That's awesome. That's for sure. I would agree. And obviously we've talked a lot about your bipods, because that's kind of the main thing that a hunter would carry, when it comes to that. But you have an amazing lineup of tripods as well that use the same mounting system. You have the Springbok tripod as well, which is obviously very similar to the bipod with that silicone head. But what, I guess if let's kind of maybe wrap it up with this question. What would you recommend for a hunter that is looking to get into a system, maybe one tripod and one bipod, mainly a hunter, but sometimes goes to the range, and then also outside of the mountains, maybe hunts pronghorn out here on the plains, out there in Colorado, Utah, Wyoming, and can bring a tripod with them to hunt as well. What two would you recommend as far as your bipod and your tripod system for that kind of guy?
I would, really good question, actually, RedBeard. I would say, for me, and it's an easy answer, I'd say go Springbok bipod, Springbok tripod. They're not expensive. They do a huge amount. They're going to put a smile on your face. They absolutely will cover those events that you've just said. The Ascent tripod that we offer is far more expensive. It's a lot more sophisticated, does a lot more. For most people, it's not needed, right? Mm-hmm. Save yourself some dollar. I'm honest. At the end of the day, that Springbok tripod will cross over so many different states and shoot effectively, right? The minute you get into the mountains, my answer would be different, right? But anything subalpine, Springbok bipod, Springbok tripod, absolutely. Anything mountain environment, use the Springbok bipod, absolutely. I would have a different tripod scenario solution for the mountain environment, because there's different challenges there. Mm. But the environments you just said, absolutely. Springbok tripod, check it out. It is a fantastic tool. I personally think if we have this conversation another 18 months, when people start finding out about it, it's going to be the biggest seller we've ever had, because it just ticks so many boxes.
I got you.
Could be wrong, but we can always reconvene in a couple of years and just say, well, Gearing, did I get that right or not? There's a couple of other things I just want to touch on before we depart. And one, because you're into your bows, and I welcome some challenges on this. I love the bow. I am no expert on the bow. Right, I do a lot with Prime. They look after me, make some fantastic bows, and I invented a little product like a stabilizer unit with a toolbox inside. So you've got all your screws and adjusters there for your bow as well.
Yeah.
And this little tool goes on just like a bow stabilizer, but it will also link on our Magna Switch system to stabilize your bow. Now, is it a hunting tool? No, I'm not saying that. Does it mean I can calibrate my bow? Yes, it absolutely does. So at 20 yards, I could achieve 60 yards at the same results. I'm not good with the bow, so I'm not the right person to ask. And I'm no expert. So I encourage all the criticism people can throw at me. But if I can make you more accurate on a bow, I'll take that as a criticism. And for me, it absolutely freaking works. And it's stupid simple. You just lob it on. I took it to Africa when I was out there last, and we were using a bit of bows, and they loved it over there. Is it perfect? No, it isn't. Does it make you shoot more accurately? Yes, it does, in my case. But check that out as well. I'm not even sure they're on the website yet, RedBeard, but these little
I'm
bows.
looking through right now to see if they're here. I don't see anything archery related.
No, we'll get that up and on there. But G4 Archery over in Oregon have been selling some early versions, and we got some feedback from him, and we've changed them and adapted them a wee bit. But it's we posted that on Instagram, and I think we had like 125,000 views in 24 hours. Now, we're a little site, so it went ballistic, and it was literally people ripping holes in us, or people saying this is the best thing. There was nothing in between, but I thought it was just great to see it come on. And I'm, criticize. That's how we get better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I'm sure when somebody came in. Sorry, go on. Yeah.
No, I was just going to say, I would say, short of having what they call a hooter shooter, that's a machine that will shoot your bow for you. Short of having that, I would agree. I wouldn't necessarily carry that out in the field, but getting your sight marks, very similar to being on a bench with your rifle, right? Having something that for sure is not going to move, takes out the human element, gets your sight marks sighted in, but maybe you don't want to go buy a hooter shooter machine because you're going to use it once and be done with it. I think it's got a great place. Honestly, obviously, without seeing it in person, I'm not going to give my full opinion on that. But from what I could see from the video, it makes sense to. And I think some people didn't understand that was the purpose, was to get calibrated, get your bow dialed in, and then once you know your sight marks are on, then go out and shoot, and you can see whether or not it's you or the equipment that's causing the issues.
I mean, one of the criticisms, I had one guy come out and said, people are going to start shooting deer at 120 yards with it. So look, I'm not God, right? Mm-hmm. I don't have your conscience, right? It's not, right. That's not what it's for, right? I wouldn't zero a rifle without a firm support, right? So surely if I can set the bow up, and if I choose to keep it there as a stabilizer, then great, but it's got its place. And maybe in a hide, maybe, you could use it then. But anyway, I'm not an expert. I take that, but it's a fun journey for me just to see how that goes. It's just stable platforms for bows as opposed to rifles.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. No, that's awesome. Well, sweet. Is there anything else you want to touch on before we wrap this up?
No, I think keep on, America, doing what you're doing. Congratulations on keeping your public land public. Coming from a country where we don't have public land, I really do appreciate the value of that. Don't let it go, right? Because it doesn't come back. The UK, you could learn a bit from the UK on how not to do things. And it always pleases me to come out to the States at how accessible hunting is, for the public. It's going to keep it appealing. The fact you can eat organic meat that you go out and harvest, I think, is quite magic. Keep the youngies coming. Keep enthusiasm there, and keep telling the good story. And maybe we should avoid words like sport and trophies in hunting, because the other side will use that language in a way that isn't sexy for us. Sport for me is kicking a ball. A trophy to me is a great memory on a wall, right? From something we've probably eaten, right? But that's our language. I think we just need, if we can be a bit more sensitive to those kind of things, we have a better and brighter future. That's my words of wisdom from Mr. G, and they're probably not very wise, but I'll throw it in there anyway. Yeah.
Appreciate that. That's awesome. And I would agree. It's for me, like this guy right here, this elk right here, he's not the biggest elk in the world, but he is a trophy to me. He was my first elk with a bow. And to me, that's a trophy. Whereas some people, they hear trophy and they think 350 plus inch bull, which I don't even know. I don't know how people can pull up binoculars and be like, oh yeah, that's a 360 class. How do you, what? Like, I don't get how people can do that. And I don't know, maybe one day I'll get to that spot, but I look at there's different things that I look at and prefer to look at when it comes to my quote unquote trophies. Definitely look different than some people some other people. So I would agree. It's definitely it's almost like an inside joke. I wouldn't say it's a joke, but it's like inside vernacular where
Mm,
we use certain verbiage to describe things, but outside people will see that and hear, we use animals as trophies
mm.
and as for sport, that we kill for fun. And that's not what we mean, at least the majority of us.
I think we don't have anything to run and hide from as long as it's explained well. We've been doing it on the planet since we've been here. We wouldn't be here if we didn't do this. So I've had some brilliant constructive discussions, let's say, with people all over the planet that have been anti-hunting. I've even taken 2 vegans out, I've ended up turning around saying, well, I really shouldn't like you, but actually, if I'm going to go hunting, I'll do it. And they've come away with a much better appreciation afterwards. And I'd always say it can go wrong. But would I rather be something wild, living out there doing what I'm doing and taken out when I'm probably old and, just getting on there? Or would I rather be a farmed beef herd? No, I go for
Yeah.
the wild animal every time. And nature isn't sexy. It's very cruel. And we need to understand that, things don't die well out there. And actually, if I was a stag up in Scotland, I'd rather be knocked on the head at a good age than starving to death because my teeth are gone. But, we could talk about that forever. And I'm just very passionate about it because I really do I don't get angry about a lot of things, but I get upset when people paint the wrong picture because they're ill-advised or ill-educated. And I think it's our duty to try and educate as many people as we possibly can that what we're doing is fantastic. Kids,
Mm-hmm.
kids growing up on computers, and we're all guilty of it, right? They're not going to remember that. You take them out and they shoot their first animal, so that's tattooed into their DNA, right? Be it turkey, whatever, right? But take your kids out, get them to do stuff like this, get them young, and then get them to eat it with you. There's nothing
Mm-hmm.
better. That's about as wholesome as it gets, people. So, as an old man, I'm a big advocate of that, and I love to see it. And it's so hard and difficult to do that in the UK unless you're in a farming family or you come from the right family or you're a landowner. And that's my constant challenge, is saying we could take so many more people and get them on side, but you can only do it with the land. And you've got the land, so don't let it go.
I agree, and I appreciate that. We definitely did a great job of combining forces and making sure that didn't happen. And the fight still continues, unfortunately, but that was a big win. So I appreciate you bringing that up. Well, honestly, Rob, I appreciate your time today. I appreciate you hopping on and discussing the tripods and bipods that you offer, the unique style that you have, because it really is different, sets yourself apart from other companies out there. And I just hope things continue to go really well. I'm excited to see more about the archery tripod that you've got and some other items that are coming down the pipe. So with that being said, guys out there listening, thank you so much for tuning in. Really appreciate you guys listening to Rob discuss, Spartan Precision, how things have been applied, why he came up with this brand and this gear, and how he continues to develop and get better year over year. So with that being said, like I always say, guys, get out, live your life, and love it.